What's poppin', y'all? OG AMP member and streamer and also YouTuber Fanum, he decided to leave some comments on streamers that say they're depressed, and it got a couple people looking at his man's Kai Cenat. Is he talking about him or a rival, Neon? I'm gonna play you guys the clip of Fanum right now.
I can't complain. How can I complain, bro? Don't let these streamer niggas lie to y'all niggas, bro. My worst day is somebody's best day on Earth, gang. What the fuck? Don't worry about that shit, gang. Don't worry about that shit, bro. Like, these streamers are so you're so fucking annoying. Depressed. Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up, bro. Wish they could live this life. Like, there's good depressions. You get what I'm saying? You know when they be like, would you rather cry on a bus or cry on a Ferrari? I want to cry on a Ferrari. And then the older woke like, yeah, but you still crying. Shut the fuck up. I'm in a Ferrari crying. I'm crying on a Ferrari. You know what I'm saying? Like what we talking about, boy? Like, come on, son. Let's be real, man. It's good depressions right there, bro. I just keep it a buck, bro. That's why I'm never gonna really make it on some big. Well, I guess I made it to a lot of people, right? So, but like on some real massive, they're never gonna let me do it. You crazy, gang? They ain't never gonna let me be in there bugging. I say I keep it real too much, gang. You can't. They're not gonna let me do it, gang.
So the reason why I personally think he's talking about Neon is because of this Neon clip.
Look rough, bro. I'm not gonna lie, Chad. I've been going through some mental shit, bro. Like, I don't even want to get into it, and like really, like, I don't want y'all to feel bad for me, but I'm going through some mental shit. My head just like up, like, I don't even want to get into all that, but I'm pushing through. I'm dealing with it. At the end of the day, bro, all I need is me, myself, and I.
So Neon's really the only one Neon is definitely unfavored in the AMP crew, especially how he talked about Kai Cenat. And you could just see the response that he got on the Breakfast Club interview where they pressed him about the comments that he made about not only Kai Cenat, or Kai Cenat's family, but also Harriet Tubman. So Fanum, I don't think he messes with Neon, rightfully so. You don't have to accept somebody's apology. And Aiden Ross, some people would say Aiden Ross, but I think Aiden Ross is a different story. Aiden Ross is more lazy than depressed, and Aiden Ross has also said, like, yo, if these streamers talk about they're depressed, they're not depressed, that doesn't count. And on top of that, Aiden Ross has actually lost family and has had illness in family, which is something that you can't equate to money. Like, yes, somebody being down because their family is ill and there's nothing that their money can do about it. Fanum's not talking about that. But I do think that there's an important distinction to be made between how somebody was raised and where they were raised and them being depressed or not. So, like, let's just take Fanum for context, right? Fanum, he blew up. Fanum didn't blow up. Fanum gradually grew on social media and his income as well. So it's never directly linear, but it's as close to linear growth as you could possibly have. Fanum didn't go from making nothing one year to several $1 million the next year. At least not as far as I know. Like, his growth was gradual. So he was able to slowly get accustomed to the fame, the popularity, the comments, and he came up in a different time when now if you blow up, everybody knows who you are instantly. Just think about it. Before October, or just even when Aiden Ross first linked up with this clavicular guy, nobody knew who he was outside of his niche community on TikTok, and he was part of this guy like Cookie King, who's really big on TikTok, like that. But when we're talking about the mainstream, which is I have people in my family telling me like, yo, who is this? And this is in November, mind you. In November, I have people in my family telling me, yo, there's this guy that hits his face with a hammer. I'm like, whoa, what the hell is going on? How did you find out about this so quickly? And that's not even considering the car running over incident. That guy, within 2 to 3 months, at 20 years old, every single person recognizes him. Damn near, right? Like, household, not name, but recognizability. And that's not something Fanum had to deal with. And that can be a lot, especially if people are a little bit anxious. So that's something that Fanum did not have to deal with. But also, also the background. Like Fanum, he came from the Bronx. Fanum also came from a Dominican family. Fanum also grew up broke. If you grew up poor and you grew up surrounded by danger and you make a little bit of money, not even a lot of money, you make a little bit of money, it is very, very, very hard to be depressed. It is incredibly hard to be depressed. Let's contrast that with Neon. For Neon, for example, he grew up, his parents had paper. I mean, I think he said, was he from Sugarland, Texas? I don't remember, but there was a clip of Neon with a girl in a car, and they were both from Houston. And he was like, "Oh, what neighborhood you from in Houston?" And then he says the neighborhood, and she's like, "Damn, you rich." And Neon has spoken about his parents being like well off. His dad had a business. So he grew up in an environment where there was no danger. And he grew up in an environment where there was no financial stress. No, okay, open up the cabinets. There's nothing there. All right, what kind of meal are we going to make? Okay, there's no food. You open the food, there's mold in it. You're just like, damn it. You open up the cereal, there's maybe ants coming out of it, maybe a roach. You don't want to eat the cereal anymore. You go to sleep. You're just like, I'm going to sleep early tonight because I'm so hungry that I don't want to have to deal with the hunger for a couple of extra hours. And then you wake up less hungry. Just all of these different things that come with poverty, these were removed from Neon's upbringing. I'm just using Neon as an example for somebody that grew up how we all wish we could have our children grow up. So you grow up like this, and then you have potential of doing stuff like faking cancer at 13, 14, saying the wildest things ever. People that grew up poor, they don't really talk like that, especially like Neon. Like, they're not faking cancer. They're not. And this is also why you see certain people that just leave a violent environment and a poverty environment, and they may not even be middle class. They may be lower middle class, right? Like a ton of people in the military, for instance, they are so happy that they just get moved to perhaps a different country. They're like, yo, I get to live in a different country. I'm not surrounded by danger anymore. I'm not surrounded by gangs. I don't have to consider getting robbed, and I get to paid to be here. Now, they're not getting paid the big bucks, but that change is enough to completely rewire somebody to be like, damn, this is amazing. Now, once you get past the danger aspect and the poverty, then life doesn't get like multiples better. Really removing those two and not having financial stress, it's nearly impossible to be depressed at that point. Unless there's perhaps like some genetic component there, which I know is contentious. But I mean, there are certain people that just seem happier than other people, generally speaking. And they could be in the same environment. So if you're like, hey, this rich person's, these people are at the same level of wealth. This guy always seems happy. This guy always seems down. So it's not just the money aspect of it. However, with streamers, there's an important distinction that we have to make, which is it is stressful. It is very, very stressful. Like, there are certain people that may have blown up in streaming and they feel like they're stuck there, but they're not extroverted and they're constantly in front of cameras having to meet people, and there's anxiety. Like, there are streamers that are anxious, and there are some that have talked about it, that they have such high anxiety to pressing go live because of maybe they took a break for a little while and then they're like, oh my goodness, my audience, they open up the stream, they're about to press go live, they see their offline chat, people saying, man, when's this guy going live? Man, he said he's going to go live today. I doubt he's going to go live. Man, I remember when this guy used to be consistent, and just different comments about his life, his personal life, maybe his relationship, all that other stuff. And they're just like, oh my goodness, what am I even going to do on live today? They don't even know what they're going to do, but they want to go live because their audience wants them to go live, but they also want to keep them entertained. And then they're like, yo, are they going to like my idea today? Am I going to like just catch a bunch of L's and negative feedback from my audience after putting this much effort into a stream? Like, there's a lot of stress that comes with this that can create depression for the streamer. And part of it is how the streamer has cultivated their audience and their community. Like, for example, a Fanum. I think Fanum and Agent are great examples because they did this slowly and their audience is just trying to see them go live. Like, I was going to write a tweet about it, but I didn't know how to formulate it properly to, have the highest likelihood that it turns into a banger, which is just an experiment that I've been running. But Agent feels like, this is somebody that is creating stream content solely based on, hey, would I enjoy doing this in my life? Let me film it so that it's a business expense and I get to create content out of it. And if people aren't so like interested in it, it is what it is. I remember he went to East Africa for a trip. I don't know if he went to Eritrea, but I know he's from East Africa. He went to Ethiopia and maybe some other countries. He's doing a stream where he goes to every landscape in the world this year, like a survival stream. Like there's tundras, there's deserts, and there's two others that are escaping me. He just made this car that he's gonna start drifting. So all of his streams are kind of all over the place, and he's not doing what's going to get the most views. What's going to get the most views, Agent knows this, him doing something with a chick, him being in a relationship with a chick and having her on stream, him doing some sort of dating type thing, which I've never really seen him do much content like that. Same thing for a Fanum, right? Like Fanum he's going to maybe play a game. He's going to hop on his chat, but you're never going to see Fanum or Agent's community be like, yo, this is a boring stream. Do this, do that instead. However, for a Neon or for an Aiden Ross, they kind of have that audience. And I think it's because at the beginning, they were just trying to chase the numbers, keep the numbers high, because they almost started off so quickly with just jumping numbers that when they see the numbers go down, they're stressed. Meanwhile, Fanum and Agent, they've been able to create a community for themselves where, number one, mentally, they're not really tripping off of numbers like that, because that's also another thing streamers do, is they up their expenses so much and they start to get depressed again because they feel like they're carrying a mountain on their shoulders. Like when they were broke, let's say they were making broke, quote unquote, right? In comparison to what they're making now. Let's say they were making $4 a month, but they were at their parents' crib and they weren't paying anything for their stream. That's a good position to be in. That's not much financial stress. However, this clavicular guy's an example. He said he had payroll now. He has payroll of $43,000 a week. So over a month, he has $170,000 that he has to pay off. Now, granted, the guy's making probably several $100,000 a month. It depends. He's making a lot of money. He's at least off of the gambling stuff making $250,000. But if you're making $250,000 and you've got to spend $170,000 in fixed costs, and that doesn't include the trips, that doesn't include the vehicle that he bought. He bought a vehicle for $180,000. All of these other expenses, you're drowning. So you still have this razor thin margin. And then there's also the responsibility of making sure you're paying out your team, which is also something Aiden Ross has talked about, where he's like, yo, I have 50 people on payroll, or I don't know if it was 50 or 100, and he's paying a lot of money. So he's got 50 people who rely on him that he doesn't want to fire. So you're kind of getting to this position where now you're forced to stream, and something that you used to do out of joy and fun is now a necessity to be able to just sustain your expenses. And that can be stressful and that can get depressing. Now, what's the solution is to cut everybody and go back to normal, because there's no reason that you need to have that many expenses as a streamer unless you want to compete and be at the top of viewership. But then there's the con where you get eaten up by your viewers and you don't get to have a relaxed, enjoyable streaming career like a Fanum and an Agent, as two great examples, and even as a Duke Dennis, who even put out, I think it was mistitled, where they were saying yo, Duke Dennis is saying that he would have stressed out before if he made as little money as he did last year, which I do think Duke probably made less last year. But the point is that even though this clip was taken out of context, and that's why I'm not going to play it for you guys, Duke is somebody that has been like, yo, you know what? I'm going to do what I want to do that intersects with what my audience wants to see. And I'm not going to try and compete and be a Kai Cenat and be the biggest guy. And you don't really see other people from AMP trying to do that. And I think it's because they had conversations with Kai Cenat. Some people were just in the game longer, like Duke, Agent. These guys, Kai Cenat was damn near the last one to be brought into there. But these guys realized oh, damn, this is what comes with trying to compete at the top. I'm good off of that. I think I'm a lot happier where I'm at. So yeah, for sure, he is right in that distance from danger, violence, and financial stress, it's hard to be depressed. But being a streamer, you can have financial success but hate what you're doing. And that's where you get a lot of people with high earning careers that hate their lives because they're like, yo, I went through all this school. Like some doctors are like that. They're like, yo, I went through all this school and now I have all this debt and I'm making money, but I hate this. And I can't escape this because there's status involved in it. There's social status. There's money involved in it. How else am I going to make this amount of money? Because they've tasted that and they're stuck and they're depressed. So it's really, really hard. But I do respect Fanum's take here, and I'm kind of on board with him to keep it a buck. Like, yo, if you're not struggling, be grateful. Because any streamer that's talking about being depressed, if you told them, okay, do you want to be broke living in the hood? They're bad. No, I'm good. So that's all there is to that. But let me know what y'all think in the comments. Like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell if you enjoyed. And I'm going to see y'all on the next one.